Alright, so we're doing something a bit different today. Instead of making a normal FNAF Theory video, thank you on that video by the way, I'm going to the FNAF Theory Wiki, picking 3 completely random theories, and trying my best to defend them. Now, some of these theories might have sound insane at first, some might be theories most people disagree, but the goal today is simple. I'm going to try to prove that each of these theories actually make some sort of sense in the FNAF timeline. So let's start with the first one. The first theory is called Henry Guard. This theory says that Henry Emily is actually the security guard we play as in FNAF Freddy's 3. Most people assume the guard is Michael Afton since he shows up in other games, but if you look close, Henry actually makes a lot of sense here too. First, Henry would have had a huge motivation to be there. At this point in timeline, he knows what William Afton has done. His daughter is dead, the animatronics still might be haunted, and the company he helped create is basically a nightmare at this point. So if Fazbear Frights opened up as a horror attraction based on all the tragedies, Henry might want to investigate it himself. And here's another interesting detail. In FNAF 3, the player used audio lore to distract Springtrap. If that sounds familiar, it's because the exact same mechanic shows up later in FNAF Freddy's Pizzeria Simulator, which we know Henry planned. That means Henry clearly understands how to manipulate animatronics using sound. Another piece of evidence is the phantom hallucination. During the night, the guard sees Phantom Freddy, Phantom Foxy, Phantom Chica, and more. If the guard is Henry, that makes sense. Henry would recognize all these characters because he helped design many of the original animatronics, so the hallucination could be the result of trauma, guilt, and memory coming back. There's also a line from Phone Dude during night 1 where he says, Hey, I'm glad you came back for another night. That implies the guard already worked before night 1. And Phone Dude almost sounds like he's trying to impress the guard. That could mean the guard is someone important in the company. If the person was Henry, the co-founder of Fazbear Entertainment, that would explain a lot. Now there's definitely a problem with this theory. For example, the survival logbook heavily suggests Michael Afton might be the guard instead, but even with that, the idea that Henry personally went to Fazbear Frights to confront the pest and destroy it actually fits really well in his character, especially since the attraction burns down in the end of the game, like FNAF 6. The next theory is called Logbook 2017. This one says the survival logbook was created in 2017 specifically for Fazbear's Frights. At first sounds like it's weirdly specifically structured theory, but the reasoning behind it is actually pretty clever. Inside the survival logbook, there are puzzles where Michael writes, for real value go to page 61. On that page, there is a chalkboard showing the number 5 plus 4 and 3. If you solve the puzzle, you get 27. Now the logbook mentions a pizza party pack costing $16. If you adjust $16 from the inflation of 1993, it becomes around 27 in 2017. Which means the real value might be telling us the logbook exists around 2017. There's also a funny detail in the logbook where Chica is shown doing a dab, and if you remember internet history, the dab was extremely popular around 2016 to 2017. Another point is that the real life book released in 2017, which might be a hint of timeline placement, is meant to match the year. But the interesting part is that nothing actually confirms the logbook came from Fazbear Frights. It's possible that the book was printed earlier around 2017 and later ended up connected to the FNAF 3 events, which means the timeline placement is technically still possible. This last theory is definitely the craziest one. It's called By Victim Stuffed, or BV Stuffed, and it claims that by victim died, William Afton put his body inside Fredbear's suit. Basically, Afton tried to bring his son back to life. Now that sounds insane at first, but there are some weird details in the game that makes people consider it. For example, the Dreadbear minigame in Curse of Dreadbear shows a scientist-like process where a brain is placed in the animatronic. The narrator even says something about using science to reanimate the inanimate. And if one character obsessed with cheating death and experimenting with his life is William. In the novel, Afton consistently talks about immortality in scientific experiments, so the idea of him trying to, like something like this isn't impossible. Another detail appears in Ultimate Custom Night where Golden Freddy twitches strangely during one of the final cutscenes. Some people think that could represent the animatronic reacting to Afton experiments. There's also connections to FNAF World, which revolves around the idea of putting pieces back together, something heavily associated with the bite victim. So if Afton wasn't trying to literally rebuild or revive his son, the theme would line up. So those were 3 random FNAF theories, and honestly some of them were way more believable than I thought. But now I want to know what you think. Which one of these theories actually makes sense to you, and which one is completely insane? If you want, I might even do another episode defending more random FNAF theories, because this wiki has absolutely insane wild ones. But for now, thanks for watching.